The tension in the maternity ward had been building for hours, thick enough to feel in the air like a coming storm. Nurses moved quietly, trying not to draw attention, while a young woman lay pale and exhausted in her hospital bed, her newborn sleeping beside her. This should have been a moment of peace, the soft beginning of a new chapter, but instead it had turned into a battlefield. Standing near the foot of the bed was her mother-in-law, rigid with anger, her eyes sharp and unforgiving. Her voice cut through the room as she accused the young woman of ruining her son's life, of being a burden, of not belonging in their family. Each word landed heavily, and the new mother stared at the wall, holding back tears, too tired to fight back. The mother-in-law insisted that the young woman should leave the hospital as soon as possible. She claimed there was no reason for her to stay, that she had no right to demand care or attention. She mocked her, saying she had always been weak and useless, and now she had proven it by trapping her son with a child. When the young woman tried to speak, her voice trembling, she was cut off sharply. The older woman leaned closer, whispering cruelly that she was abandoned now, that no one was coming to save her. "You're rushing to the wrong station," she sneered, as if the young woman's entire life had taken a wrong turn. Nurses attempted to intervene, reminding the mother-in-law that this was a medical facility and that patients deserved respect, but she brushed them off with authority and confidence. She spoke as though she owned the room, as though her words were law. The young woman felt smaller with every passing minute, her joy at becoming a mother shrinking under the weight of humiliation and fear. She wondered if this was how it would always be, if she would always be alone, fighting battles she never asked for. Then, just as the mother-in-law raised her voice again, the door opened. The sound was simple, almost unremarkable, but it changed everything. A man stepped inside, calm and composed, his presence immediately shifting the energy in the room. He looked at the scene before him, taking in the harsh posture of the older woman, the tears in the young mother's eyes, and the quiet discomfort of the staff. He didn't raise his voice or rush forward. Instead, he closed the door behind him and spoke with a steady, controlled tone. The mother-in-law turned, clearly irritated at being interrupted, but the words died in her throat when she recognized who it was. Her face drained of color. This was not someone she could intimidate or dismiss. This was a person with authority, with a connection she had not expected, and one who clearly understood what was happening. For the first time since she entered the room, she had nothing to say. The man addressed the young woman first, asking gently how she was feeling and congratulating her on the birth of her child. His kindness was like a lifeline. Then he turned to the mother-in-law, his expression firm but controlled. He made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable, that harassment and emotional abuse would not be tolerated, especially in a place meant for healing. He reminded her that the young woman was a patient, a mother, and deserving of dignity. The mother-in-law tried to recover, muttering excuses, but her confidence was gone. The power she thought she held evaporated under his calm scrutiny. She stood there, silent and stiff, unable to respond. The nurses, now emboldened, backed him up, reinforcing hospital rules and making it clear that security could be called if necessary. For the first time, the older woman realized she was not in control. As the situation settled, the young woman felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. She had braced herself for abandonment, for the idea that no one would step in. Yet here was proof that she was not invisible, that someone saw her pain and chose to act. The man reassured her that support was available, that she did not have to face this alone, and that what had happened was not her fault. Later, as the mother-in-law left the room in silence, the ward felt lighter. The baby stirred softly, and the young woman finally allowed herself to cry, not from fear this time, but from release. The weight that had pressed on her chest began to lift. She held her child closer, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and strength. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew this moment would stay with her as a reminder that cruelty does not always win, and that sometimes, an unexpected guest can change everything. In a completely different setting, another confrontation unfolded under bright studio lights, broadcast live for millions to see. Kevin Bacon sat on the panel of a popular daytime talk show, the atmosphere tense as the discussion grew increasingly heated. Joy Behar challenged him aggressively, her tone sharp, pushing him on topics that felt less like conversation and more like provocation. At first, Bacon tried to respond calmly, offering thoughtful answers and measured responses, but the interruptions kept coming. The exchange grew uncomfortable, the audience sensing that the line between debate and disrespect had been crossed. Bacon's expression tightened as he attempted once more to clarify his point, only to be cut off again. The frustration that had been building finally surfaced. He leaned forward, his voice firm, stating clearly that he was there for a conversation, not to be talked over or misrepresented. When the interruptions continued, Bacon made a decision that surprised everyone. He stood up, removed his microphone, and addressed the panel directly, saying he would not participate in a discussion that lacked basic respect. The studio fell silent as he walked off the set, leaving stunned hosts and a buzzing audience behind. Both moments, though worlds apart, shared a powerful thread. In one, cruelty was silenced by unexpected authority and compassion. In the other, dignity was reclaimed through a decisive act of self-respect. Together, they served as reminders that standing up to hostility, whether in a hospital room or on live television, can shift the balance of power and leave those who rely on intimidation suddenly, completely speechless. The maternity ward was supposed to be a place of calm, where new life was welcomed with quiet voices and gentle hands. Instead, it became the setting for a bitter confrontation that no one in the room would soon forget. A young woman lay in her bed, her body aching from childbirth, her emotions raw and fragile. Beside her slept her newborn, unaware of the storm brewing just a few steps away. The door swung open sharply, and her mother-in-law entered with a look of cold determination, as if she had come not to visit but to judge. Without even glancing at the baby, the older woman began to speak, her words sharp and relentless. She accused the young mother of ruining her son's future, of bringing shame to the family, of being nothing more than a mistake that should never have happened. Her voice rose with every sentence, echoing off the sterile walls. The young woman tried to respond, but exhaustion and shock made her words come out weak and broken. Each attempt only seemed to fuel the older woman's anger. The mother-in-law demanded that she leave the hospital as soon as possible. She claimed the family would not pay for her stay, that she had no right to rest or recover there. Leaning close, she delivered her cruelest blow, telling the young woman she was abandoned now, that even her own husband had chosen distance over loyalty. With a bitter laugh, she added that she was running toward the wrong destination in life, that no one would be waiting for her when she arrived. The nurses noticed the tension and stepped in, gently but firmly asking the visitor to lower her voice. For a moment, it seemed the situation might calm, but the mother-in-law snapped back, asserting her authority and dismissing the staff as if they were irrelevant. Her confidence was unshakable, built on years of controlling others through fear and guilt. The young mother turned her face away, silent tears sliding down her cheeks as she held her baby closer, trying to shield the child from the harshness in the room. Then, unexpectedly, the door opened again. This time, the entrance was quiet, almost respectful. A man walked in, his presence steady and composed. He took in the scene with a single glance, understanding immediately that something was deeply wrong. He introduced himself calmly, his tone carrying a natural authority that did not need to be raised to be felt. The mother-in-law turned to confront this new arrival, ready to assert herself once more, but her confidence faltered as recognition dawned. Her expression froze. The sharp words she had prepared never came. This man was not someone she could intimidate or dismiss. He represented both personal and institutional power, and he was clearly there to protect, not to provoke. For the first time, she stood speechless, her earlier dominance crumbling in the face of accountability. The man approached the young woman first, asking softly about her condition and offering reassurance. His kindness contrasted starkly with the cruelty she had just endured. Then he turned to the mother-in-law, his voice firm and unwavering. He explained that her behavior was unacceptable and constituted emotional abuse. He reminded her that the hospital had strict rules about visitor conduct and that the well-being of the patient and child came first. The nurses, encouraged by his intervention, reinforced his words. They spoke with renewed confidence, making it clear that security would be called if the harassment continued. The mother-in-law attempted to argue, but her voice lacked its former edge. She mumbled excuses, shifting blame, but it was clear she had lost control of the situation. Moments later, she was asked to leave the room, her departure marked by silence rather than triumph. When the door finally closed, the room felt different, as though a heavy fog had lifted. The young woman let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Tears flowed freely now, not from humiliation but from relief. She thanked the man and the nurses, her voice still fragile but filled with gratitude. Holding her child, she felt a spark of strength return. This moment, painful as it was, also revealed that she was not as alone as she had feared. Far away from the quiet halls of the hospital, another confrontation was unfolding in a place designed for public debate and entertainment. Bright lights illuminated a television studio as Kevin Bacon took his seat on a daytime talk show. What began as a lively discussion soon turned tense when Joy Behar challenged him with increasingly pointed remarks. Her questions felt less like curiosity and more like accusations, pushing him into a defensive position. Bacon attempted to respond thoughtfully, choosing his words carefully, but he was repeatedly interrupted. Each interruption chipped away at the possibility of a meaningful conversation. The audience sensed a shift in tone, the energy in the room tightening as frustration built. Bacon's patience was visible, but so was his growing discomfort. Finally, after yet another interruption, he spoke plainly. He stated that he respected debate but would not accept being talked over or mischaracterized. His tone was calm, but the message was clear. When the interruptions continued regardless, he made a decisive choice. Rising from his chair, he removed his microphone and addressed the panel directly, explaining that respect was not optional in any discussion. The studio fell silent as he walked off the set. The hosts were left stunned, the audience buzzing with disbelief. It was a powerful moment, not because of anger or spectacle, but because of the clarity of his boundary. He chose dignity over compliance, making it clear that no platform was worth sacrificing self-respect. In both stories, the setting and circumstances were vastly different, yet the core lesson was the same. Whether in a hospital room or on live television, power dynamics can shift in an instant when someone refuses to accept mistreatment. Silence, when imposed by shock and accountability, can be louder than shouting. And sometimes, it takes an unexpected presence, or a bold decision, to remind everyone in the room that respect is not a privilege, but a right.